All right, it is April 4th, 2022 at 5:45 p.m. We're going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. Present are council members Barker, Hottinger, Hauser. If you want to speak, ma'am, could you please go outside? I'm trying to conduct a meeting. Sitting in for Lang is Labutus and Martin. First thing, the unappropriated balance of the general fund stands at $485,744. The budget stabilization stands at $1,114,703. First item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $275,000.
This is money in our stormwater account. We have a line item in the stormwater budget that we use for what we call our small projects budget. We've used a considerable amount of that money this year on two emergency projects, one on Riley Street and one at 5th and Main, which you probably got detoured by here the last week or so. And we spent a couple $100,000 on those two projects. And then a third project is a repair of a dam on Raccoon Creek that we needed some extra funding for with the Army Corps of Engineers. And so to get those projects underway, because they were emergencies, and we took money out of the small projects fund. And this is just reimbursing that fund, taking it out of the unappropriated balance. It leaves us with about 4 months worth of operating capital in our appropriate balance in the stormwater fund, and our goal is to kind of keep that around 3 months, so we've got enough money there to do this. And so that's what we're requesting, is to put that back so we can do the rest of our small projects, which is a rather lengthy list that we need to get done this year. So.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Hottinger. Any questions and or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ray. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to negotiate and enter into contract without competitive bidding for the purchase of body-worn cameras within the Division of Police and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we are presenting tonight for your consideration is legislation to waive competitive bidding for the purchase of body-worn cameras. In order to implement this program correctly, it's vitally important that the body camera interface with the in-car video system that we currently have. The police department has done a lot of research into this, and they've come to the conclusion that there's only one manufacturer that meets that necessary requirement. Chief McKee is here tonight. He could speak to the technicalities of how everything operates, so we are available to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Labutus. Any questions and or discussion? I'll just comment when the director brought this to my attention. I did speak to a couple of folks, including the sheriff's department that has in it. It is very important that it all syncs up. It's almost like a routers work certainly better with certain equipment and certain types. So we don't want to have to put something out to bid that in fact we have to go with one manufacturer. So that's just kind of my opinion. Yes.
Director, once this money is appropriated, and an agreement is made, do we know a timeline of when this program will be active?
That probably best answered by Chief McKee. He's had more contact with the manufacturer than I have.
So prior to this little setback here, we were still looking at June, July timeframe. We spoke with the manufacturer just as of yesterday.
via message and got it this morning that will still be online, barring any major catastrophes in the July range, as far as that's full implementation and they're out of the streets.
Thank you.
Any other questions and or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the city of Newark to file an application and to participate in the state of Ohio Brownfield Remediation Program Fund and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the Ohio Brownfield Remediation Program was created by the state of Ohio in their current budget to help clean up brownfield sites across Ohio. We have a site located at 217 South 21st Street. It's been in existence as a brownfield for quite a few years. And we have been monitoring it along with the Ohio EPA for a number of years. We have really just been waiting for a funding to come along that will help us make some progress on remediating the site so we can get back into productive use. And this state budget money is exactly what we've been waiting for. So there is the emergency clause, as you see on the end of the preamble. That is because the deadline for this is April the 30th. So if would like the committee's recommendation to move this forward to council and see if we can get an emergency clause and get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Barker, second by Hauser. Questions and or discussion?
You know what the amount of the grant can be?
That's a good question. I'm going to go for a maximum of $300,000 in this round, which will allow me to do assessments. And then I plan to follow up in round 3 and ask for additional funding to demolish the structures that are currently on the site. And our contamination lies below ground on this site, below these buildings. And this brownfield grant allows us to combine demolition with brownfield cleanup. And so that's what I'll do. I don't have a final number, Councilman, for the underground cleanup. That's being put together for us by an environmental consultant over in Columbus. You might know it as Hall and Associates and Jim Roberts, who was with Jones and Henderson here locally, and then they were bought out by Hall, and now it's called Ordinance. And it just so happens that there is a gentleman who worked on the team at Hall back about 10, 12 years ago, who worked on a plan in a proposal to do a cleanup, but we just didn't have enough money, quite honestly. We needed over $1.5 million 10 years ago. We're not sure what it's going to be, but hopefully we're going to know in the next couple of weeks to put this on the application. So that's the best answer I can give today.
Is there any kind of a match or anything that we have to make sure or?
For this 300,000, no, because it's coming out of the first $1 million. Each of the 88 counties in the state of Ohio, we're giving $1 million to put toward this to get started. And then you can go up to $10 million for each project after that. With that money, there is a match. I'm confident we have it covered because the presentation I'm going to make to council at the next council meeting, another 2 weeks, is a presentation on this very site on 21st Street, where we engaged with the US EPA this past year. And we were very, very successful in getting a lot of above ground hazardous product removed at no cost to the city. It was absorbed totally by the US EPA. That will be in the presentation that I will present. And it's got over $700,000 of cost from the US EPA that is applicable to a match. So we could go to a pretty high dollar volume with using that match. So great question.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you all very much.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $1,500.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had some unexpected revenue arrive for the East Main Street tip, and this will go for a payout to the Licking Valley Schools, along with some fees that are associated with that.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Labutus. Any questions and or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation amount of $270,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're asking, this comes out of the Budget Stabilization Fund. We're here to buy a house on the southwest corner of Granville Road and 21st Street. Last year, we used some dollars and we bought the ground behind that. So then the city will move from Granville Road to the on-ramp there. And then we also moved the other corner, which would be the southeast corner. Accumulating more corners, going to give us an opportunity to do a project on that intersection, to widen it a little bit, but you got to collect the corners in order to do that.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Heiner. Any questions and or comments? I'm just going to comment that this is actually going to the OPT fund, and then the next item will be another appropriation for the actual land purchase. So we have to do two of them for the same thing. Okay. So any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. I'd entertain a motion for the appropriation of another $270,000 to move it into the land purchase.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Ottinger. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have one other thing on the, that actually isn't on the agenda, but that I just want to bring up, and I want to bring it up in committee in case anybody has any questions or wants to dialogue about it. Resolution 22-12 was the resolution that we tabled indefinitely about the radon. We got an estimate. We asked the director to go do some additional, get some additional quotes. We did, we found one for less. Then I actually asked him to go back again and say, hey, can we just not even have the testing and just say, let's remediate and then reduce in expenses? Well, they said, no, we can't do that. You have to have the test in order to do that. I'm trying to save a little bit of money. But I am going to bring that back on the table so we can move forward with that radon and remediation. But we were just trying to save a little bit of money with the actual testing, knowing that 98% of every single structure in Lincoln County gets tested positive. Okay, so, and with that, this finance committee meeting stands adjourned.
Okay, we'll call the service committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Rath, Barker, Klein, Oninger, and Mr. Labutus sitting in for Mr. Harris. Up first, we'll consider resolution number 22-34, a resolution authorizing the conveyance of certain real property now owned by the city of Newark, Ohio, to Newark Development Partners as its agent for industrial, commercial distribution and research.
This is
Mr.
a piece,
Lewis.
yeah, this is a piece of property down by the, what we call the National Growth Pump Station. We purchased this for the 4th Street project, for a house down there. We subsequently put in a structure for overflow down there. It's a very small piece of property. It was not really suitable. I mean, it's not really suitable for home because it's next to the station. There's some uses there for maybe some of the neighbors to use it, and that's how we want to get rid of it. So it turns over the Newark development partners to dispose of.
Okay. Any questions from the committee?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Parker. Seconded by Blind. Any questions from the audience? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on to council, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
Abstain.
Abstain. Vote. Pass with a vote of 4-0 and 1. That concludes the service committee. Next will be the safety committee. I see Mr. Hauser.
No.
Oh, man, quick.
I've called the safety committee to order, President or myself, Mr. Barker, Ms. Blind, Mr. Hauser, and Mr. Rath. This evening, we're considering ordinance 22-14-A, an ordinance amending chapter 475 of the codified ordinances of the city of Newark, Ohio, relative to bicycles, skateboards, tricycles, and toy vehicles with portions of the municipal corporation. Safety Director, do you want to speak again? We
Yes, sir.
discussed this 2 weeks ago.
Yes, this is basically the same legislation that was presented 2 weeks ago. Although the law director did make one minor modification to it. There, last meeting, there was some confusion or questions about whether or not bicycles were classified as toy vehicles. So she removed the letter or other toy vehicles from the title of the legislation. So it just, or from the ordinance, and it just says that additional regulations for the operation of bicycles, tricycles, skateboards, and toy vehicles. So for the sake of clarity, she removed that. Other than that, it's identical to what was presented 2 weeks ago.
Thank you for the update on that. Motion from Mr. Barker, second from Mr. Hauser. Any questions? Mr. Smith, you go first.
Stephen Smith, 237 Violet Court, North Ohio. I just wanted to express my appreciation for making that change. And I think this will be a good clarification for that legislation. Thank you very much.
Rochelle Bowen Smith, 237 Violet Court. I also want to express my appreciation. It does read a lot better. I also would like to suggest that when you present that simultaneously, that you do a campaign about educating the public on how to use the roads together, both cars and bicycles. For instance, a couple weeks ago after meeting, saw a bunch of kids going on to the entrance of 16, wavering all over the place and kind of using it as a skate park. There's been a number of accidents, serious accidents through the years, with people feeling that bikes are not a serious mode of transportation. And I think the public does need to be educated on how to work together, both on sidewalks and on the streets. Have some ideas on how to do it. I've actually been involved in getting bike radios together and some things like that, as well as maybe having some pamphlets and some publicity in the paper. But I think it's life altering. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad the chief's here this evening. I guess the most important thing that I need to know as a city councilman, whenever we invoke any kind of legislation, is enforcement. How are we going to enforce this? And is it going to be enforced? Because there's no purpose in putting legislation forward unless there's enforcement to back it up. So therefore, if we don't have this manpower to enforce what we're putting into place, and we're not going to enforce it, then we're putting something out there to just create more complaints of what's happening. So I guess prioritization, what's the system? Is it still going to go through our typical 911? If there's a complaint, is it only complaint driven, or is it going to be enforced on site? What's kind of going to happen there? So we have our expectations.
All right, you have a bunch of different questions.
Sure. No, you.
Okay.
I know.
This legislation was originally thought of by us, so this did come from us. Our community initiatives unit sergeant modeled this off of other cities such as Delaware and certain cities in Ohio that have a DORA. Because we are utilizing that DORA more and more and more annually, the propensity for bicycle pedestrian collisions on the sidewalk is bound to go up. So that's why we brought this legislation forward. So as a result, we plan on enforcing it. We will be starting off, like Ms. Bullen-Smith said, with an education campaign first and foremost. And education will always be our first priority anyway. However, working with the law director, that's why we put in some of the stipulations such as persisting for those people who kind of snub their nose when we go to revert to education. And this is basically starting a partnership, again, with the law director, moving into enforcement of some of the minor, I don't want to call them minor, but minor misdemeanor type citation issues that we have in the city. The previous law director would not allow us to do those. So some of these ordinances went unenforced as a result. This is not the case with our current law director. So we plan on doing that. So more than likely, it will be every single time a DORA event is going on, we have officers there. Those officers will be one of their responsibilities to do it, or any officer that happens to see it. So, does that answer all of them?
Yeah, it's fantastic. That's music to our ears. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mrs. Mullins? Okay.
I'd like to suggest, again, for Shovel and Smith, 237 Bodyworn Court, would like to suggest that we partner with some existing organizations in the area, for instance, the Licking County Bicycle Organization, and that sort of thing, which organizes some fabulous rides through this area that draw a lot of visitors to the area. Another thing that you could do is perhaps with our Strawberry Festival, you might do a rally down there. It could be a really good area to do because it's going to be sort of isolated from cars and some things like that. I do have some other ideas if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions from committee? Seeing none, I have a motion by Mr. Barker, second by Mr. Hauser. All those in favor of saying this full council vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All same? No? Passes 5-0. And that concludes our safety committee. Next up is capital improvements.
There is not one.
There is not one?
No.
Okay, that concludes committees. That concludes committees. We will have council at 7.